Well, welcome back to the second part of this Oxygen 250 discussion. In the first part, of course, we talked about the changing role of channel partners, and we also talked about killer AI use cases. In this second part, we're going to be tackling a range of big questions, starting off with AI and jobs. So Microsoft has laid off another 15,000 employees this year alone, and a lot of the stories are in conjunction with AI. Will we see channel partners follow suit and downsize because of AI?
I did notice yesterday Sunday Times mentioned that grad jobs are down 30%. And a lot of that is because those first line type of roles are being almost cannibalized by a little bit of technological unemployment. So deploying AI in certain functions within the business does mean that there's less to go around. I'm seeing us grow in areas that are making an impact for our customers, and that does need to be human-led. So yes, there may be parts of a role that needs to be almost outsourced to, the technology, but that leaves you in a better space to create revenue-generating activities. So yeah, growth will come in exciting ways, may not always be headcount-driven, but I'm not seeing, in our particular part of the world, a drop.
Sure.
Well, if there isn't a CEO in every channel partner out there and company looking at systemization, AI and tooling, I'd be amazed, right? The efficiency gains, the productivity gains it can give a business, you need to be looking at that, right? So does it mean that roles might be different in the future? Yes. Does it mean that our people today should be using AI systemization and tooling to become more productive and therefore be able to do different things quicker or become more effective? Yeah, I think it does. And does it mean that we should be able to scale the revenue and growth of our businesses at a faster rate than maybe scaling headcount? Probably, yeah. But I don't think, we're not vendors and we don't create the source code, the software, the products. So proportionally might be slightly different in the channel. Yeah. But do I think the roles will look different? Yeah, absolutely. And as Candice said, we're already starting to see the advent of that.
No, definitely. Ross, you got an opinion on that as well?
Yeah, very much so. I think what I see is that particularly in the channel, the MSP, the VAR, the SI community, Al's talked about his people. Candice has used the term human-led a couple of times, which I think is a great term. I think a big part of the value proposition of the Oxygen 250 is its people. It's a big USP. It's not always the most easy one to articulate and make tangible for the clients, just because it's kind of, the proof in the pudding's in the eating in that regard. So I think it's very different to a vendor in terms of the importance of the quality of the people and the white glove or the human interaction of the people. So what I'm seeing in some of our customers, and I would say probably a little bit more in the US than here actually right now in terms of some of our US-based customers, is that I'm not seeing the channel partners make swerving redundancies and get rid of lots of people in their organization, but I am seeing them not replace them when they go. So by natural osmosis, people are leaving the organization and not replacing those roles with other humans. They're perhaps getting another member of the team to pick up their role also, and using a bit more automation, they can get effectively two for the price of one. So, and again, I think we're at the very early stages of that. As I said, and we've got one particular US customer that's probably more ahead than anyone else I've seen in that regard. But as I said, they're not making redundancies, they're not getting rid of people, but they're quite a big employer. They've got well over 1,500 people that work for them. So by natural staff attrition alone, they have a reasonable headcount churn over the years. So I think it will be different in the channel. And I think we'll see a bit more of that. I think we might also see a little bit more of a requirement around outsourcing and doing things in a slightly different way. And again, automation is going to drive some of that. But that's the feedback I would say. What we're seeing is not swaying 5, 10, 15% of the organisation being made redundant, because I think for most people in the channel it would be hard to keep the lights on if they did that. Whereas, as I say, it's just not replaced when they go.
Yeah. And if you look at the Oxygen 250 figures, the growth was down a bit. I think it was 12 or 13% in the latest year. These figures are fairly, they're outdated now because it was 6 months ago. But it was down from, I think, about 18% the year previously. And a lot of that is driven by consolidation. So it obviously inflates that number. I just feel that organic growth is quite rare in the current market. It's hard for a lot of players to achieve organic growth, and that's because of the tough economic backdrop and the extra costs that have come into the business. So you had the NI hike in April as well. So how have the two of you, your organisations, how have you coped with these changes, these extra costs, and this tough economic backdrop over the last 6 months, say?
Yeah, we have hospitality as one of our sectors, and I think it has been the most exposed to those changes. Since October, 69,000 jobs have been shed in the hospitality sector in the UK. And if things aren't changed on a fiscal perspective, I think that is set to rise. The headline was 200,000 jobs at risk. So that is quite a fragile environment to be in. It does call for fiscal reform. It does mean that the way we contract with those organizations needs to be flexible and almost future-proofed in a way that we're going to actually add value to them. It can't be in the traditional MSP contract for those organizations. So we're seeing different business models come to play. We're seeing maybe a bit more diversification in some of the other tangential areas within the industries that we work with. So bleeding more into professional services or doing things that are slightly more packaged, like I mentioned earlier, is giving those businesses the ability to actually come in with a predictable view, because couple NI with the interest rate backdrop, and you have I think people are quite cautious with regard to spending, particularly on the IT and tech side, apart from looking for more types of productivity gains.
Sure. No, great. And Al?
Yeah, I mean, you said organic growth was tricky in this market, and I'm delighted that we've just completed our 19th year of sort of consecutive profitable organic growth, and the plan is to have our 20th year and beyond, Doug. So I think, has the additional costs coming in from like national insurance, for example, dampened our ambitions? Not at all. Do we need to find different ways to mitigate that cost? Yeah, absolutely. And we touched on, how much can you lean onto systemization and tooling and AI in order to help make people more productive? Well, we just need to lean harder in those areas in order to mitigate the cost increases that come in. But getting tighter with our clients, getting tighter with our partners and our vendors, all of those sorts of things. But no, I think our ambitions remain. It hasn't dampened those. It's not particularly helpful, I'm not going to lie. So, there's other things where we could be investing that is for sure. But, we have to do our best to mitigate it.
Definitely. Ross?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting that Candice mentioned the hospitality sector because, that they seem to have had no good news since COVID, to be honest. It just seems to be one sort of hammer blow after another. And I did an article not so long ago when they asked me my opinion of the impact in the channel, what the NI and minimum wage hike as well. There are minimum wage workers in our sector as well. I think people typically think IT, highly paid jobs, but there are minimum wage workers also. And I said then, and I still believe it, and that the channel are entrepreneurial, the channel are a robust bunch, and no matter what the market conditions, the vendors, whatever throw at them, the channel kind of always finds a way. And I still absolutely believe that. I've not seen any evidence that changes my opinion on that one minor bit. What I am seeing in terms of an impact, though, I touched on it just a moment ago about outsourcing. I'm seeing some scenarios where people are looking at saying, can I get a function here where I can buy it under a statement of works or under a contract with a fixed price type agreement, which mitigates sort of cost of living adjustments or index hikes, and just buy it as a service and not have the overhead of having it in-house. I'm starting to see some of that. When you're in my business, that's not a bad position, I hasten to add. But I think on a sort of more, on a more broader scale, I think there is a number of organisations out there that are putting a brave face on it. If I'm on, and they're hoping to trade their way through it. I think some have reacted already in terms of, as they're trying to not replace people when they go, these types of things to smooth it. But I think what will really tell with these things, I nearly always think that the bite comes a little bit after the event. And I think we might be coming up to the bite point for some organisations where they thought, we'll see how it goes, we'll muddle on through. the economy, not just in the UK, in Europe, is pretty challenging right now. You could say globally. US growth seems better than most. No one really knows what goes on in China. To be honest, we have to believe what we're told, but no one truly knows. So the global economy is a pretty challenging place. The European economy is very flat in real terms, and our own economy is very flat. That with continual rising prices, I guess inevitably will lead to one thing, and it will lead to organisations reshaping some way degree to the market conditions. And I'm not sure that bite has really grabbed hold hard yet. And I hope it doesn't. I genuinely hope it doesn't, because as I say, we're talking about people's lives and their jobs and their ability to pay their mortgages and those types of things. But I suspect that we might see it, back end of this year. Autumn budget will be interesting, see what happens post that. But circling back to close out on a positive note, Doug, there was a bit of a prophet of doom there for a while. But circling back to that, as I said, the channel is a resilient, robust bunch that's had a lot thrown at it for decades and decades and decades, and every year comes back stronger. And I have no doubt we'll do the same again. And so there'll be some bumps along the road, but the channel tends to find a way, and it will do this time as well.
Yeah, if you look over the years, COVID, we've had chip shortages, there's global wars, there's macroeconomic issues, right? There's every year there's something, right? And as Candice, as you said, for us, it largely comes down to how it impacts our clients. I guess from your perspective, it's largely how it impacts the channel, right?
Yeah, correct.
And the knock-on impact of that. So, if our clients feel the cost increases and they have to mitigate that, they mitigate for that in different ways. But if you looked at our client base today, I mean, they're spending millions and millions more because of these changes such as NI. So, that does have to play through somewhere. So whether that's making people in their businesses or in their, industry redundant, or whether they're looking to mitigate them in the same ways we are, it's a real challenge. So, yeah.
I think a real good real life example of that, actually, circling back to sort of retail hospitality, is if you go into a supermarket now on a Saturday morning, it used to be full of checkouts open with typically, sort of college kids and sixth formers working the tills. Now there's hardly anyone doing it. They're all self-serve automated machines, and there's a few people milling around. Some are youngsters, but typically they're more sort of retiree age people, I would say. But actually they're getting the same throughput done through sort of self-service and technological innovation with 1/10 of the people that they perhaps had only certainly 10 years ago. And I think that's a great living example of how that's had an impact. And I think we'll see more of that. We've seen it in places like, hospitality, McDonald's, Burger King, where it's all, you order yourself now. You don't go to the counter and order. You hit buttons on a machine and it does it for you. And in fact, in many respects, we're more comfortable with it because we don't have to talk to anyone. But I think that is a sort of snapshot of a real world scenario of what we're seeing. And as I said, and we might see an acceleration in that. Hope not, but we might do.
It's going to be tough for Gen Alpha, isn't it? Coming into the workplace in a few years' time, extremely tough. Those entry-level roles, as you talked about, Candice, is, I think, extremely difficult. So the skills they come out of with further education or college with, and apprenticeships, etc., are hugely, hugely important. So, that's our responsibility to make sure they're coming out with the right skills, I think, especially into the tech sector.
For sure, yeah. And just to add in a positive note, I mean, the two of you around the table are performing really well. Organic growth, you're saying again this year, which is great. And Softcat, who you might say are a bit of a litmus, really overperformed in their most recent results as well. So there's definitely some cause for optimism. But obviously I'm a journalist, so I'm always on the lookout for scoops. So maybe if we could just end by asking the two of you, tell us one exciting development that you have planned for the second half of the year.
I think you mentioned it, Al. You're talking about service desk and looking for the AI impact. We've got this notion of shift left with all of our tasks, making sure that automation is in place to, one, do good case deflection, make sure that there's lots of self-serve. I want to go one step further to shift left and shift up, so that every single role within our organization is looking for what is that differentiator that's going to make us truly relevant, not just as an internal stakeholder to the Wanstor business, but try and really light the fire in our hospitality clients, in the professional services clients, and then make sure that charities are able to do what they need to with the tech that they're going to invest in.
Fantastic. And Al?
Yeah, so lots going on the second half of the year, but I'd choose one thing. I think it's a similar theme, actually. So Natilik DigiX, we might still work on that brand, but that's our one-stop shop sort of portal that we use for digital engagement with clients. So we've seeded that into our service desk solution over the last 6 months, and we'll be broadening that out in the second half of the year. So really giving clients the ability to have sort of frictionless engagement with us across all areas of our business, so they can access everything digitally. So yeah, Natilik DigiX is quite a big one for us. In the same way I've talked about productivity and tooling and AI systemization for our people, same for clients, right? So making sure we give them the right platforms to do that. So that's a big one for us.
Great. And Ross, what can you let slip in a public forum such as this? What have you got planned for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think when you've got Rich as your chief marketing officer, you can't keep any secrets for very long. But I think what we're really focusing on, doubling down on, is really kind of three work streams, and that is ultimately to recession-proof our business as much as we possibly can. So we spent a lot of money last financial year in growing internationally. We opened up in Singapore. We spent a lot more money in the US to try and drive that organization forward. So the international market diversification gives us a bit more strength. We've enhanced our services portfolio, particularly from a managed services perspective, and spent a lot of money around systems and tooling, but also people, higher skilled, higher technical competent people. So enhancing that to help our customers plug more of the gaps they have from a vendor and technology perspective. And I would say last but not least is that organic growth is tough, but it isn't impossible, Doug. I think it needs the right strategy, it needs the right level of tenacity, and we're sort of hell bent and hell for leather on trying to grow that as well for a really targeted and focused and data analytical driven sort of sales approach, to really try and do more with the customers that we have, as well as attract new ones, but really align more closely to them. So it's international expansion, it's service improvement, and I guess sell the doors off it is the sort of kind of approach we're looking at.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, it's such an exciting time for the market, and certainly learnt a lot there in terms of the opportunities that are ahead for you guys, and certainly learnt maybe not to use the term trusted advisor in the future. Be careful about using that as well. But no, learnt so much today. So thank you, all three of you, for joining us for this special discussion. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Doug.
Doug.